call it this way. The universe, God, spirit, whatever you believe in, took a 2x4 and smacked me on the forehead.
Spirituality and capitalism belong together. Those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet.
All right, well, Thomas, welcome to the Spiritual Capitalist. I really appreciate you coming out here all the way from Texas.
Yes, sir.
And today we're going to talk a lot about some of the experiences you've had in business, some experiences you've had personally, just so that our viewers know that you have written a book. I guess you're what, two-time author?
Yeah,
or
two-time Amazon bestselling author.
Amazon, man, that's
and
incredible.
we can dive into that too, because I think it's a scam.
Well, yeah, we definitely could talk about that too.
Yeah.
And the book you wrote was Unfuck Yourself, which is a really
Unfuck
interesting.
your business.
Unfuck your business, excuse me.
That's all right.
Well, at the same time, you have to unfuck yourself at the same time,
You
right?
do, and you know what? That's funny. People start going down this path. They want to fix their business, and they realize, oh wow, I'm actually really broken.
That's facts. Yeah, I tell people all the time, like when you're actually starting a business, it's one of the biggest things you can do to discover who you are as an individual, and that path is pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
So you wrote that book how long ago?
I started writing it in 2018. It was finished and launched in June of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a little while ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Has your perceptions changed
Yeah.
since that point?
So much has transpired in my life, both good and bad, since the launch of that book. Exiting businesses, starting new ones, starting new relationships, exiting relationships as well. Like so much of it has happened. Literally, growing up, spending my first 40 years of my life as a born and raised Long Island, New Yorker, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, deciding to uproot my family and move into Dallas, Texas for a multitude of reasons. Like so much has changed, and it continues to evolve and change so rapidly, and I'm also okay with it.
And that's the key. You have to be okay with your
okay
choices, right? Like you're moving into a different place. So right now, you went from being an author.
Yes.
You're one of the guys that's known to be the COO. You're the operator. You're the guy that makes sure that as I call it, the trains run on time, right? Yes. CEO from the top usually basically says like, this is the vision where we're going.
Yeah.
I need someone actually to take my vision,
make it a reality,
and help me make it a reality. Which anybody in business, that is one of the most key players. That someone like myself, I'm a visionary. Like I think big. I'm always thinking way outside the box, and then I go back and I'm like, hey, here's my plan. Here's what I want to do, and I'm like, but I'm not a great implementer. And someone like yourself, to me, is like worth their weight. Like it's one of the best hires that we ever made inside of our own company with Mint 45 years ago. And I would say that hire was one that changed our entire trajectory.
Yes.
Because of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So going in from your book that you wrote, right? Things have shifted and changed a lot. What would you say is like some of the major things in your life that has shifted and some of your thoughts you have? Because that book is really focusing on a lot of the, how do I want to say it? It's a way that you would run your business, and more importantly, it's like the ethics behind your business, and it's the what I want to call them. It's basically like this is the roadmap. These are the guidelines. What I want to say the staircase of what you need to follow in order to be part of this organization.
Correct.
And every single meeting, you would go through these different processes every single time. You want to share a little bit about that?
Talked a lot about. I'll go back even further. So I was just a blue collar guy working on cars.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this business opportunity comes up, and it's like, okay, I see the potential there. Because as much of an operator I am, I do have a little bit of visionary in me too. I can see the potential there. I can see where this thing can go. But I also had the realization, like, I'm not capable at this point, at this version of me, to take the company to where it needs to go. Like, how do we get there? And it's like, okay, go find someone who's kind of been there, done that. Let's go learn from them. And that's where I really started to learn and dial in the operations side of things. So I had to go through this learning, this training, invest money, hire people, coaches, consultants, mentors, that kind of thing.
Right.
And reading too. Reading has a lot to do with it. I think for everyone, and not just business, but also personal growth and spirituality, which you can dive into as well. But getting things dialed in, like, hey, what are we doing here as a company? Like, what is our overall vision? What are the core values that drive us? What are the guiding principles that we have to follow if we're all going to be here on the same mission, rowing in the right direction?
Got it.
Okay, cool. And that's like the really summed up version of it.
Right.
And lots of people have written about this at this point in time. But I kind of was able to pull it in a way to take this something that's complex to a lot of people and simplify it for people who were like me, who came out of, let's say, a trade, or maybe didn't go down the traditional path of education, or didn't have the experience on a white or collar side of business to understand and know what these things are.
Yeah, which would be a lot on how you would shape culture,
Yeah.
which to me, when you have a large organization, one of the most important things you have is a culture.
Yeah.
Because if you're not shaping the culture,
It shapes
people don't know where
itself.
you're going, it shapes itself, right? And I think when you're looking at those guiding principles, one of the things when you're creating products or services, if you're not following your own guiding principles, then it doesn't make any sense. Like with the project we're working on right now in the last 2 years in AI space, I finally had to ask myself, like, okay, what is it that we're creating? What is it that we're doing? And I realized the number one thing that we need to do for business owners is to simplify things, but more importantly, if we're going to simplify things, because that's a canned ass word to use all the time. Simplification. We're going to business is not simple.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's marketing, there's advertising, there's sales, there's operations, there's the pieces that sound simple, but really what it for me was to end chaos. And so every little thing that goes inside of our platform, is this ending chaos or is this creating more chaos? 9 times out of 10, we're creating more chaos.
Yeah.
And so it's like we have to continue to dwindle down and get to that point in time.
Yeah.
So
That brings up a good piece there. It's one of the questions I ask a lot of my clients is like, if we were to eliminate this daily task, this activity that you or your team are doing right now, would your business go under? And 50% of the time or more, the answer is no. So why are we continuing to do it? We're literally wasting time, putting effort and energy into something that makes no difference in the overall outcome of the business. And it's usually like, oh, well, we've always done it that way.
well, it makes me feel important, or that's just how we've
This is
created
the
things.
routine.
It's the validation side of things.
Yes.
So since you've written your book, you've obviously you moved on. You've been doing a lot of coaching, helping a lot of business owners. In that process, for yourself personally, as you've been going through this, and if you're to look back, what is some of the biggest mistakes you've made during that process?
Overall, what are some of the biggest mistakes? Trusting before verifying. Getting involved in relationships or business deals with people that maybe I should have done a little bit more due diligence before jumping in, feet first, like both feet.
Right.
That's bitten me a couple times in life, and it's one of those lessons that stings. I don't know about you, Dalton. I'm the kind of person that has to learn lessons multiple times in order for them to really make an impact.
Oh yeah, I know how to lose money at this point in time. I know how to make all kinds of mistakes at this point in time. I know how to do a lot of things that I either have an opportunity to learn from them or have an opportunity to keep repeating them over and over and over. I mean, even doing this YouTube show, do you know how many mistakes I've made? Do you know how many things have not worked? Do you know how many things have fallen apart or what I thought was the way to do things? And we have to implement and we have to shift and we have to change and we have to be moldable.
Yeah.
And I think that's even that way in our personal lives. So the guy that you were when you wrote the book originally, now you told me that at that point in time, you're a guy that is, I mean, bring us back to like who you were internally. I don't care about the business.
Yeah.
I want to know like how you were inside. What was going on? What was the validation that you wanted to beat on your chest and prove to the world who you are?
I was, from a young age, I was told by some, like my mother was great, super supportive. Hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. Like that was the household I grew up in. But I ran across a couple of people, a good handful of people throughout my earlier years who basically told me I was worthless and couldn't do anything. And it gave me a chip on my shoulder. Like, really? You think so? Cool, watch this. And I used that almost anger as fuel for many, many years. I did not have support when it came to writing my book, even from my business partner at the time. He thought this stuff that I was doing for self-development, things to optimize our business was a waste of time. You'd rather just go there and do the work. And it was a lot of contention between us. I was, at the time, in a marriage, right? And I figured, hey, we're very happily married. We've got a couple of kids here, and things are going well. We never fight. We never argue. And that should have been, looking back at it now, it should have been something I was like, hey, you may want to dive into that a bit deeper. But at the time, I would have said, yeah, I'm just happy. I'm over here doing the work. You want to go into the substance side of things. You know, I spent 20, 22, 25 years of drinking alcohol every day. Right. So as I'm, and as
Every
I was,
day?
every day. And it wasn't like, I wasn't the kind of guy who was like, hey, I'm going to the bar and I'm going to drink 10 beers and come home wrecked.
Right.
And it was, hey, let me come home from work and open it. I had a nice house and had a spare apartment in the back with a whole separate kitchen and fridge. Like that was the man area. My home office was back there too. And the fridge was always loaded with beer. So I'd come home from being on the road and helping my guys in the field or seeing clients and whatnot and come back in and open the fridge and boom.
Well, you earned that beer.
Yeah. Hey, 1 to 3 beers a day was minimum. You know, most days was 3 to 5.
That's standard in the U.S. though. For
Correct, it is.
most men, they come home.
It's acceptable.
Yeah, it's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
You come home, you worked hard, you did the thing. And, you know, commercials have shown us, growing up has shown us this, that, hey, listen, now what we do is we crack a beer, we drink a scotch, we have a whiskey. That is just standard how we do things.
Yes, it is.
So nothing wrong with that.
Nope, that's what I was doing for quite some time. And what I didn't realize until many, many years later, until about a year ago, was how much it was keeping me disconnected from showing up at home and being the true family person that I thought I was being.
Ooh. So I like the word you used. I thought I was being. So you had an image of yourself showing up a certain way.
Sure. I was there. I was, you know, a husband. I was there. If the wife needed help, I'd help her out. If the kids needed help, I'd help them out.
Sure.
But at the same point in time, it was always me and the business first, which is selfish as all hell, but it's just the truth and the reality.
Well, was it selfish though? Because, you know, I guess I come from a background where it's like, listen, your job comes first, your business comes first, because if we don't have food on the table, then none of us eat, none of us survive. Like men must go out there and conquer and slay dragons and do all of these things. I'm sure that this is, and even probably with your mom, some of the stuff was kind of beat into you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up in a very hardworking family. You know, my work ethic was taught to me by my mom's brothers, 2 blue-collar guys, great people who just worked me like a dog when I was a kid. And I don't mind it. Like, I'm grateful for it because it taught me what was required to really put in a good hard day's worth of work. But there comes a point in time, I think, as you're growing as a human, as a man, where that necessarily may not be the best way to go. I didn't necessarily need to work harder to bring more money in to feed the family. Like, we're good there, right? But you know, I've heard this term. You may have heard it before too. Hiding in the hustle.
Of course.
Yeah, like I was legitimately hiding, and I still do it to this day, but not to the extent that I was. Fortunately, now I have a partner who has the guts to call me out and say, "Hey, what are you avoiding right now? Because you went back into the home office and you're hiding behind your computer screen right now."
I can relate to that on so many levels, right? Like I can relate to that in my past specifically, where I'd come home, didn't want to deal with a bunch of bullshit, didn't want to deal with conversations. I got to work.
Yep.
And maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But there's always time to work. There's always more to do. Like it's never going to be there. So, but that becomes an avoidance. So you've probably seen now with, I learned a lot a while back, but about attachment styles. There's avoidant attachment styles. There's anxious attachment styles. And I was classic avoidant, right? I'm really good at that one until I become aware of what I was doing, which was being avoidant. And then I had to look at myself and be like, oh, so for you, what was the pivotal point in your life that you shift and change and says, you know what? I no longer want to go down this path. I don't want to be a guy that drinks all the time. I don't want to be a guy that's disconnected from my family. And like, when was that awakening moment for you?
About a year and a half ago.
So not too long ago.
No, not too long ago. But, you know, there was so many steps and stages that led to that. It wasn't just I woke up one day and said, oh, yeah, I want to change this.
What were some of the pivotal points?
I call them life-altering events, right? So getting married, that propelled me as a man, as a human. Kind of got my stuff together. Having children, that was a big one for me. And we were kind of talking about it on the ride over here after grabbing coffee. But I truly believe that I didn't become a man until I was 35. And 35, my first daughter came into the world. And my ex-wife was pregnant. About 3 weeks into the pregnancy, we knew she was pregnant at this point. 3 weeks after she let me know, it was like, oh my goodness, I have to bring another human into the world and I'm responsible for that person. That's what lit the fire under my rear to really start saying, okay, well, I've got this business, I've got this business partner, and we're making great money and things are going well, but how do I make this better so I can sustain more? I had a very clear glimpse into the future of me. My ex-business partner was 10 years my senior, and he had 2 sons. So I got to see what I was going to be doing 10 years from now if I continue down the same path that he was on. And not that there was anything wrong with it, because that's a choice. Right. But since I was able to see it, I was able to say, yeah, that's cool. Great for you. I don't want that for me. So if I don't want that for me, I've got to go and make some changes. I've got to educate myself and see what else is out there and what other paths we can go down. So that's what kind of just the first domino that went down. And I've been on this path since. So, marriage, children coming into the world. We talked about this earlier too. Went for kid number 2, and 2 and 3 came at the same time. 6 months later, major surprise. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And looking back at it now, I laugh because there's a lot more than 3 in the house. Terrified. 6 months into that, my son, in the middle of a winter storm in New York, has an intestinal blockage, and he can't consume anything, can't pass anything. And my ex says, hey, we've got a problem, and he needs to go to the hospital now. So there's a 2-foot blizzard going on outside. It's like, all right, well, let's clean up the car, get him over there. That was a very true test of my business, because I had to walk away from it in order to take care of family. And when I walked away from the company, I came back, it was still functional, still operational, still making things happen. Okay, cool. So that means all this work that I had done, all the coaching, all the consulting, all the mentors, all of the systems and processes, all the CRMs and the software that we implemented and all these things, they've actually worked, because if I tried to do this a year or 2 years ago, I may have come back to no business whatsoever.
Which means you don't really have a business, you have a hustle.
Correct. So, okay, I see this works. At that point, the business starts to continue to grow and evolve, and people start asking me, hey, how'd you make that happen? Well, what made this work? That's when the next trigger for me came in, and I had this idea. At this point in time, too, mind you, like, I am consuming books like crazy. I'm behind the wheel 2 to 3 hours a day on the road going to see clients. So audiobook central, just ripping through the car. If I'm home, I'm usually reading something as well. So I'm consuming books like crazy. And I had this idea one day, like, it'd be really cool to write a book one day. And I was like, I don't think I have it in me. That self-doubt, that negative self-talk we have for ourselves.
Of course.
And fast forward like a year, maybe 6 months, a year, and I'm networking with other people who are authors. And I'm like, this guy wrote a book?
Nothing special about
Nothing
that guy,
special.
right?
Like, hey, no offense, nothing special about you. And that's what kind of gave me the idea to go after it.
You've had a lot of, I'm listening to as you're speaking,
Yeah.
everything for you is a reflection point. I
Yes.
saw my business owner, it was a reflection back to where I was going to be. I didn't think I could do something. I saw someone that I really didn't think they should be an author. Really, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
And I looked in myself and I thought, why am I holding myself back if this person is not holding themselves back?
Yeah.
What a beautiful way for you to be able to like look at these different mirrors, because I believe the whole world's a mirror. I believe you're a mirror of me and vice versa. And so for you to be able to see that, I think is really important. But what I want to know is, like, when we get to that point in time to where you say, I'm no longer drinking, because that seems to me, everything we've talked about, that has come up several times,
Sure does.
which means that's important to you. It's important to your mission.
Yep.
And my guess is if you could, if there's other men out there or there's other people, and I'm just use men because that's, who we both are, that if you saw people out there that were going down the same path you were going down, if you could stop them ahead of time and say, hold on a second, like, maybe this isn't the right path for you. I know this is something socially acceptable. I know this is something probably your fathers and grandfathers and friends and everybody around you does, but this is really cutting you off from your spirit, from source, from your intuition, from your higher guidance towards your business. What was that point?
Started with psychedelics. That was the ultimate piece that got me off of it. it started. Let me go back. It actually started. We've talked about it a couple times in the last few days, but 75 Hard has been a thing that's helped me tremendously.
Yeah, Andy Frisell. Yeah.
I did it once, and the first time I did it in June of 2020, I was terrified because I was like, "There's no way I can go without alcohol for 75 days."
Just to stop for 1 second,
Sure.
so that some people might not know what 75 Hard is, right? So let's just kind of give a little bit
dive
of
in.
understanding.
It's a program, a challenge, whatever you want to call it.
It's a book, correct?
There is a book on it. There's a podcast that goes over it, and basically it's 75 days of you going in and doing some hard stuff. And individually, none of it's difficult. When you combine it and you have to do all of it every day for 75 days, that's the challenge.
Yeah, so it's
Two
workouts a day,
one
right?
outdoors, and the other one could be either indoor or outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
Consume a gallon of water per day. Read 10 pages of a self-development book. What else am I missing? Progress picture
Progress picture
for
yep.
yourself.
And then water.
And then water. You have the gallon of water.
It's interesting because
and follow a diet.
that whole thing, the exact diet, don't deviate. That whole thing comes off from things like Wake Up Warrior and all of these, the core four. And what I've noticed about all of that, right? It's have a plan, stick with the plan, don't deviate from the plan, create progress from the plan, don't deviate. And if you do, start over.
Yes.
And that is something that all human beings struggle with. But what's on the other side of that is such a beautiful reward.
It is.
And for you,
Yes.
it sounds like during the 75 Hard, it was during the pandemic, right?
Yes, it was.
You basically said, you know what? It's a pandemic.
Yes.
All these people are getting lazy, fat, stupid, depressed. I'm not going to be that person. What was the reflection that you decided not to be that person? Because you have a lot of reflections.
I could pretty much see where we were going and where we talked about this again the other day. People had the okay to sit home and do nothing and be lazy. The government and society said, go ahead and do nothing. Stay in your pajamas all day. We're going to send alcohol to your front door.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We will get you as fucked up as you possibly want to be. Yep. You can numb out, tune out. You can do anything you want to do.
Yes.
But we don't want you to improve yourself as human beings.
Yeah.
It's what it felt like.
And that's what I felt it was too. So I spent the first 3 weeks going along like a good little citizen. And then I said, all right, I've had enough of this. I don't know about you, but if I sit stagnant for too long, I get antsy. Like, I got to go do something.
I get depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mix alcohol with that, and all of a sudden the depression goes through the roof.
Yep.
So that was the precipice or the kickstart for round one. And I got a couple days into that, and I said, oh, my goodness, I've never had this kind of clarity in my life because I'm off the alcohol. I've cleaned up my eating. I'm consuming a tremendous amount of water on a daily basis, and I'm moving my body a lot. Dropped a bunch of weight, got myself into decent shape, and I don't know, 6-7 days into that first round of 75 Hard is like, I'll call it this way: the universe, God, spirit, whatever you believe in, took a 2x4 and smacked me on the forehead. I was like, oh my goodness, right? And I have a core value that I live by, and it's I refuse to be average. And I had this sign over my desk, my office, and I look up, and I was doing some work, and I was like, uh-oh. This is this core value I live by. I refuse to be average. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here in this average house. I own an average business in an average neighborhood with 2 average cars in a driveway. Not that there was anything wrong with it, right? But it
was for you, though.
It wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
And I took a lot of shit from a lot of people because here I go. I've got this perfect American dream, corner house, nice piece of property, and I decide to sell my home, exit my business, and move my family halfway across country. Right. But that's what I needed to do in order to pursue the next version, next evolution of me as I continued down this self-development path.
I love the reflection. And I keep going back to this mirror, and I keep going back to this reflection as I'm listening to you talk. I just keep seeing these things. And I see this moment in time where I want to go back to psychedelics for a second too, kind of intertwining the two because they both have played this path.
Yes.
You did the psychedelics, which is great.
Yes.
Like I have this conversation with people all the time. Like the psychedelics are great, and that is a reflection that gives us the momentum to do something. But if we don't actually do the work, the 75 Hard, the core 4, the whatever it is, yoga, water, whatever it is, right? The self-reflection, meditation, then all that shit doesn't really matter. It opens up. But when you were doing psychedelics for the first time, from your reflection, what's some of the darkest things that you've seen in yourself that you knew you had to heal?
Self-worth issues. Yeah, that was the biggest thing. I'll give you a real-world example of it. Go into a 2-day journey, And the first day I'm working with a facilitator. This is 1-by-1, super private here in Utah. And go in, I show up, Uber to the place, and I'm fasted at this point. It's probably 3 p.m. and we get started. And go in, do everything, get some things rolling here. And now, fast forward, it's 8, 9 o'clock, and I'm allowed to eat now, right? And we've had tons of conversation and worked through some things at this point. And I'm served a very plain, no salt, no pepper, chicken broth with just some boiled chicken in it, maybe some carrots and celery. Not the ideal meal for me, but hey, it's food. I'm hungry at this point, and it's served to me in a bowl with pretty much no spoon. I'm drinking out of the bowl, and I take a sip, and the facilitator asked me a question, and it was a question about my self-worth and what I felt about it, and so on and so forth. I don't remember the exact question. With that, I put my head back, and I had this lump in my throat. I was like, uh-oh. I'm not one to puke, just not. Even through all of my years of drinking, I've always had an ironclad stomach and nothing bothers me kind of deal. She asked this question about my self-worth, and I immediately got nauseous, had this lump in my throat, and I stood up because I didn't know if it was going to come immediately or if I had a couple seconds to get to the bathroom. And luckily the bathroom was that way, not too far. Guys our size, it's about 3 or 4 really good strides.
Sure.
And I hustled my butt over there, closed the door. And look, we've all puked being sick.
Of course.
A puke being sick on the flu was nothing like I did in this moment. I knew it was a purge because it was violent and rapid. And as soon as it was out of me, it was done and over.
Yeah, because that's so for people that have never had any of those experiences before, just to share, it's the emotions that are stuck inside the body and in the throat.
Yes.
And when you said you felt it in the throat chakra, right,
Yes.
is our communication. And what it sounds like when you're saying, what was that? It's like, what was that you were releasing? I'd love to know more.
It was self-worth issues. And I don't really know.
What does that mean to you, though? I understand the word self-worth, of course.
I've had trouble with my own self-worth, and I still do to this point. It's not gone.
Sure.
But it's something I'm now aware of.
You have a reflection of.
Right, yeah. So in my mind, clarity breeds decision. Okay, so if I have clarity on something, now I can make a real decision.
I agree.
But if I don't have any clarity, I can't make any choice or decision moving forward. And this was the uncoverings of, hey, you've been beating yourself up really bad, and you don't have enough worth for yourself. Giving away a lot of my time, helping people more than I probably should have been things that I've done throughout my life here and especially my career. Going above and beyond for people who truly don't deserve it.
What were you trying to prove?
That's a really good question. And that may be something I need to go reflect on even more, to be quite honest with you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's something recently that I was in. I go to Journey every single year, right? And that's it. Like, I don't do it all year long. I don't chase on, do any of that stuff. But one of the things I learned for myself recently, and you and I, we love personal development work, right? We don't want to be average, none of those things, right? Why would we want to do that? And when we do a lot of personal development work, one of the things that one of the teachers I was working with said this is like, personal development work is kind of the booby prize of life. Like this thing. And I was like, what do you mean? And he says, it's not about doing the personal development work, even though it leads you to this, but it's about doing the personal acceptance work. And I was like, oof. Yeah. Oof. Like, there's nothing to be, there's nothing to achieve, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to have. It's simply being and experiencing this life. And everything else is just judgments. And I was like, man, yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot to unpack because, when, at least for me, when I was born in the, basically the 80s, coming up, it was like be all you can be. Everything was about being separate. Nothing was about really being tied to community, but it was like being the best. Michael Jordan, MTV, Cribs, like all of that stuff, the Lamborghinis, all basically the consumerism sides of things is about being the best in all things. It's like, that's not a bad way to live and to be of a level of excellence. But when we're always trying to be at a level of excellence, and when do we step into the place of self-acceptance? Yeah. And that's the key, I think.
That's a big key. And I've gone down that path.
Oof, it's a big one.
So that's what business was for me for so many years, was going after the almighty dollar so we can go and buy the things. had the things, right? And it was one of those things where the psychedelic journey helped me uncover some of these things. Where it was like, hey, you've got this foundation here that you've built, and you've been successful. Business has been pretty good. You've made some money. Yeah, you've had some losses along the way too. We all have.
Of course.
But overall, from the outside looking in, like here's this leader, this man who's done successful things. He's got a nice house, got nice cars, has a perfect, beautiful family. And yes, I made money, but I had capped out on the amount of money that I could make because the foundation underneath was not sure, it was not strong. And I've spent the last year and a half of my life literally tearing it all down so I can rebuild the foundation.
What did you find as you tore it down?
Disconnection. Me really being disconnected big time, especially from family, especially from home and my responsibilities at home. In my previous marriage, it was like, hey, I'm the moneymaker. I'll go handle all this stuff, but you handle all the crap at home. And that worked in that relationship, but at the same point in time, it kept me disconnected from my kids.
What would you tell your ex-wife?
Yeah.
Like at this moment in time, from the man that you stand here,
Sure.
like what are some of the lessons that you've learned? You know what I mean? Because I always look back and I'm like, man, that might not have been the perfect thing I have left and I have moved forward. But what is some of the things that you would tell her if you could in that reflection of who you were and where you would rather been as a maybe more of a present father, present husband?
Yeah. I wish I would have shown up more. I wish we would have communicated more. You know, it's wild, man. You know, a core value in business for me has always been communication, right? Proactive communication, whether it's internal to your team, external to your clients, and also communication from a marketing perspective. So we practice this world-class communication in the business sense day in and day out, and yet here I am at home, and I'm a complete failure when it comes to communication. And not just me, but her as well.
Sure, it takes two people.
Yeah, I wish I would have been more aware at that point in time that the communication was terrible, and we needed to sit down and have more open, direct conversations.
I love what you said earlier. Is like, hey, listen, we had the perfect marriage, the perfect picket fence. We had the kids. Everything looked great from the outside perspective, which is most things in life.
Yeah.
But on the inner world, what was happening is we were in complete avoidance from each other. Now that you've now recognized and seen that, right? Because what you see, it's usually very difficult to unsee what you know. At least for me it is.
Same.
Which is sometimes good and sometimes a big kick in the face.
Yeah.
Or mostly a kick in the face. How has things changed now that you're being more of a present father with your children? Like, what do you notice in them that you didn't notice before?
I noticed the smaller things, behavioral changes in them. You know, the last year and a half, more than that. Let's go back. The last 4 years have been difficult on my kids. You know, they ran through COVID like we did. We picked up and moved cross country to a new place where they had no friends, no family, right? They get reintroduced to a new school system and start that path as well. Fast forward, my ex gets diagnosed with breast cancer and has to deal with that. So my kids are seeing all this stuff going on too, right? Now I start going through and go back to career, right? I'm working for someone, lose my position over there like instantaneously. So all of a sudden, everything that was coming in financially just went out the door. Now we have to, dad's got to go into like kick up the high gear, high speed mode and go reestablish and restart this business that I had started a few years prior. You know, luckily, excuse me, I had the skill set and know how to do so.
Because mom's taking care of the kids.
Yeah, mom's taking care of the kids and herself.
Oh yeah, and,
right?
because she has cancer at this point in time.
And I'm out there trying to hustle and make things happen so we continue putting food on the table. And now things start breaking down as I go through a second round of 75 hard, get off the alcohol again. And each time that I've gone through 75 hard, it's brought me to a deeper level of connection, deeper level of understanding myself. Right? So kick the alcohol again for 75 days. I get done with it, and I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to do this again. And I'm teetering on the idea of, do I continue drinking? Do I not? And as I'm teetering on the idea, I'm still drinking, but not as much as I was. Go back to reading and consuming information. I read a book called Food of the Gods. Right. And in that book, it's mostly about mushrooms and how apes evolved into humans. And there's a theory on how psychedelics were involved in basically rewiring the neural pathways of the brains in the apes and evolution and so on and so forth. There's a chapter in there where he goes in and talks heavily about alcohol and how alcohol disconnects us from spirit. It's like, oh. That right there was an eye opener for me.
I love it. That moment in time, what I love when we're on the right path, or on the path, at least it seems like we're on the right path, right? Say right path, wrong path.
Sure.
I'm not sure. But at least the one that seems to be evolved and moving from our hearts, that all of a sudden, when we're looking for the answer, because you could have easily just says, you know what? I'm still going to do these things. It's fine. I'm going to justify my decisions, or I'm still in you're still in the questioning though. You're like, I don't know if I want to do this or if I should do this or if it's the right way. Should I sell out? Because I know you knew somewhere deep inside. I've been there where you're like, maybe I could, maybe I should. Like, it's normal. It's okay. But all of a sudden you get smacked in the face by this thing saying like, this is going to disconnect you from your spirit. I've had the same experience. That's why I'm like, man, I can relate on this one. So you then get this very clear channel of knowing that, listen, you can choose to be connected to spirit or not.
Or not.
Why do you choose to be connected to spirit? Like, where does this shift come in that you say, you know what, this is the direction I'm going to go?
Felt right.
So it was just a feeling.
Just like, hey, more grounded, more connected. More clarity. Clarity is a big thing for me.
Same.
Right. So without the alcohol in life, I'm seeing with more clarity. I'm seeing all the situations around me with more clarity. Oh, I understand why that happened. Oh, wow, we have a problem over here. And I don't know about you, but if there's a big enough problem in my face for long enough, you can't avoid it for so long.
Yeah, of course. But alcohol,
Yes.
it really helps you avoid it.
Oh, it does.
You're like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I feel I'm fine. Or it's that temporary lift. You know what I mean? Or that's that false lift that kind of comes up. You're like, oh, yep. And then the next day, back into depression, back into, I don't know about you, but for me, when I drink, like drink, I get depression, I get anxiety, I don't feel good, I feel disconnected, I don't feel connected to whatever you want to call it. I call it the voice, but God, spirit, universe, source, many different names, but to me, it's all one and the same.
Yeah. One of the biggest pieces that I noticed when I had quit the alcohol for the second time with 75 Hard, working out heavily at the time, in the gym, like lifting big weight. And I noticed my recovery time was better and my joints didn't hurt as much. I was like, oh, what's going on? So I talked to my buddy who was my trainer at the time and I said, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And he's like, yeah, dummy. He gave me that talk. He's like, you're inflamed when you drink the alcohol. So no wonder why you feel better. No wonder why your PRs are going up in the weights that you're lifting, because you don't have the same inflammation and joint pain. Oh, okay. Well, that just makes sense because I like feeling this way.
Right.
I like the progress we're making here in the gym, which also reflects in other areas of life. So cool. Let me stay off of that some more. Fast forward a couple months later, because this is the third week of December, I finished 75 Hard. So now January, February, and I'm dabbling with a little bit drinking here and there and then coming off it. And now is around when I'm seeing these results and feeling this way. Fast forward to April, and I go in for my journey. And after that, like, I'm done. I don't need this.
You were done after that, huh?
Yeah. I believe it was around March 15th or so is when I stopped. But the journey really nailed it down for me and said, no more.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What's interesting too is that if you look at drinking, one of the things I've noticed is that your HRV levels is better if you don't drink.
Yep.
Sleep recovery takes a lot longer if you're drinking to actually recover, as you were talking about, which means it's screwing up your sleeping. It screws up your HRV levels. It tears down muscle. It also destroys part of the brain. But but it's cool because we're having fun. So, we can let go of some of the stuff. It's interesting what we do as human beings, but then we become aware and then we can't unsee. But I know I've seen plenty of people become aware and still go back the other direction. I mean, there's this lift that happens and people kind of go back. So for you, you said in your journey, you said, I cannot go back to drinking. Why?
Because I saw how it was disconnecting me. I saw how it wasn't making me a present father or a present husband. I saw how it was continuing to feed the avoidance in me. For me, it's very natural to avoid. I don't like confrontation. Never
So
have.
you embodied personality as well.
Yep. Never have enjoyed it. Never liked it whatsoever. If it happens, it happens. Cool. We'll go through it.
Yeah.
But if it's up to me, like I wouldn't have a confrontation with anyone ever. And let's just be real in life. There's certain times where confrontation is necessary, and I don't necessarily mean physical confrontation, but you have to have confrontation oftentimes in order to make progress.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going back to not want to have those conversations with your ex-wife. It's not having those conversations. But when you now finally have this insight, you see things differently. You stop drinking. You're still running your coaching business. You're working and helping businesses as an operator. What has shifted and changed in your business? What has shifted and changed in your leadership style now that you're connected more to your spirit?
It's not all business. And even before getting rid of alcohol, it wasn't always business. I'd always check in on clients and see how they're doing on a personal level. But a lot more of the conversations that we're having now are on the personal growth side of things mixed in with the business. And the way I approach it is this. From a marketing perspective, if I came out there and said, I'm going to fix you, the man, you're going to be like, I don't need fixing. I'm perfect, bro. I'm alpha male, right? I need my business may need help though, but I'm perfect. Okay, cool. So let's market to your business needs help.
Right.
And when we get you in the door, yeah, we're going to work on your business. We're going to dial in your systems, your processes, your operations, and then we're going to bring the level to here. Okay, but if you're here and I let you go, you can't operate the new business that we've built you. So I have to bring you up to this level as well as a human being. And at that point, we can go our separate ways.
How do you do that? What's the one key thing you see when you meet quote alpha males, right? What's the one thing you see? Then you immediately recognize, like, when this shifts, this one thing shifts in you. Now, granted, we're all reflections.
Yeah.
Like, what's that one thing that shifts, and all of a sudden you go, like,
I don't think it's one thing. I think
going to
it's
bring this other level?
I think it's a multitude of things. Living and dying by the calendar is a big thing for me. It's helped me tremendously. I was in a service-based business for so long that I was just in reactionary mode constantly. And when you're in this reactionary state, you can never be on offense. You kind of just sit back and say, all right, where's the next flyer to put out? Okay, well, let's help people dial in their schedule and know what their time is worth so they can also start charging accordingly to it.
Right.
Let's get you moving physically. I don't care what you do. If you want to go rowing, go rowing. You want to go powerlifting, go powerlifting. You want to go walking. Move your damn body. It's important, right? Dialing in the calendar, getting your physicality in check, right? You want to go down the other path, the more medical path, go see a wellness doctor, right? We had this conversation the other day as well. Go get your levels checked.
Yep.
Go get these things dialed in, and that will change you tremendously.
Yeah, we're going to be able to live to be a lot older. I really do. I mean, we're already seeing that the age that we're going to pass from this world, if everything, if we don't run into any major roadblocks or run into, something catastrophic, most people are going to live to be a lot older than what they were before. And my whole thing is I want to have a high quality of life. So it's about checking in, right? It's about, like, if you're driving your car, you got to check it out as oil. Well, you got to do your own blood test to see where you're at, where you're going. Do you have high cholesterol? Like, where's your vitamins? Where's your testosterone levels? All of it. And there's so many technologies now that we can use that. And I think if someone has the ability that our health is absolutely our wealth. Like, I believe that 100%. So it's like keeping us mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually strong so that we can then fight the fight, go into the war, because we are going to go into the fight and the war. It's part of this whole experience. It's a duality of all things. Not everything can be kumbaya all day long. But if we're not, centered as men, it becomes a lot more difficult. How would you like your experience here on this earth, what you've gone through, who you are, what is the impact you want to make on other business owners and human beings?
That's a great question. I truly believe that I've been put here to help others succeed in business and life, right? And I've recently changed that. I used to say, hey, I'm here to help others succeed in business, because that was what my passion was, right? You and I, we could talk business all day. And funny, here we are having this great conversation, and we've just dabbled in business.
Well, I know that anybody can go online and look. They can look at you've got 200 or 300 podcasts out there that you want to learn about business. You want to learn about tactical. You want to learn the tactical things on side. You want to know about, how to run your business and all of that. You've put all that content out there. But for me, and more importantly, it was like, listen, I want to show people, just because they see something on the outside does not mean that's actually what's going on the inside. And business is not an easy thing, right? Like it can be a very difficult thing, but once you get the process procedures in place, it becomes a lot more manageable, let's say. But if we don't manage what's going on inside the man or the woman, then all of a sudden now what's going to happen is that the business is going to falter and fall apart because our insecurities and the things that are going on internally have an external way of showing up in the business world. And we want to think that they're one or the other, but they're absolutely the same. Right. The same way how we do one thing is how we do everything. I heard that a long time ago. I don't know if I exactly believe that, but I will say it's, again, going back, it's a reflection.
Yes, it is. Right?
So I wanted to be able to look at you and have the conversation of like, listen, where's your life? What's going on in your life? Like, what have you experienced in your life? And talk on a deeper, more emotional, spiritual level, meaning heart to heart in that realm versus telling me like KPIs and management techniques and so on. And those are important. They absolutely are. But I do believe that most people, they think that if they run a business, they become successful, that the thing that's inside of them that has the most amount of pain, the most amount of place they want to avoid, which for you is the worthiness of things, that somehow we're going to heal that. If we have the beautiful wife, if we have the nice house, if we have the good car, if we have a great business, if we look good on paper, if everything's perfect, then you know what? I'll be happy, I'll be complete, I'll be centered.
Yeah.
What's your experience of that?
I had all of that, and that's when I found that I was the most broken. And I think that holds true for a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just going to say, you know what? It is what it is. Let's just stick with it and move on. We hear the excuse oftentimes, I'm just going to hold the marriage together and keep things the way it is for the kids. And like, I don't buy into that at all, right? I think that our children are way more intuitive than we are as adults for the most part, and that they pick up on the little idiosyncrasies way more than we will give them credit for, right? So if I'm in a home where there is not true connection, passion, and love for the other adult who's in the home with me, right, in a relationship, a marriage, whatever you want to call it, the little ones are going to pick up on it. And now we are subconsciously programming them to be us when they get older. And like, hey, I don't want to pass on the bad sides of me to the next generation.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, it's said often, I hear this all the time, readers are leaders. And we go to show that readers are leaders. But what I really believe is leaders are healers. Like spiritual capitalism. It's the fact of that we're bringing people together because, yes, they come in for a paycheck. And as a business owner, you have to have something that is much greater than yourself to want to accomplish, a much bigger passion. For you, it's helping business owners. It's helping people like lead in their life and in their business. But really, in the end, if we start from the healing side of things, if we start from the inner part of the heart, then we're not operating from a place of trauma. Most people are opening up businesses in a place of trauma. They're opening up, well, if I have this money, then I'll be this. If I can solve this problem, then I'll do this. Like for me, it was like, listen, if I can solve this biggest problem, then I won't have people around me that are addicted. If I can solve this biggest problem, I won't have the same pain that I have in my family, right? And it was me just trying to heal those things. If I can have this thing, right? So money or whatever it was, if I can have this, which don't get me wrong, it's great because those finances help create impact. It helps create things like this.
Correct.
But if I'm only operating from a place of like, if I have this thing, I'll become this thing. And then at that point in time, I'll be happy. One of my mentors always says, Sean Brady, he says, you first have to be it. You be it first, not the other way around. You don't do and then, you know, basically you don't have to like basically do and then have and then be. It's the exact opposite of all of that. But we get it all mixed up.
Correct.
And so I think to have that awareness and to have people see you from a vulnerable standpoint, you're a big dude. You walk in and you could be intimidating to me, you're a big damn teddy bear. But like from that perspective, people look in and again, and they just say, well, you must have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And the youth right now, I think they see the same thing. And I also think the youth right now is giving up on this whole concept of capitalism. I think they're giving up on a lot of these things. And it's like, no, these are really important things because capitalism, if done the proper way, not in a way that's going to rape and pillage and take, but in a way that's going to give and be prosperous and help grow, that's how we're going to change things. Because business owners, in my belief, and it's just mine, I think have more power than anybody on this planet because they're the ones that want to change the world, and they know that by changing the world, they can also give them the ability to create what it is they want to create, right? And live the life they want to live and be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
But if you don't take care of your staff, your team, your community, it all goes away.
It does.
And so if one person's not healed internally, and there's no real healing,
Correct.
there's no arrival, there's
Yes,
no
it never
point
ends.
like, what are you working on right now? Like, what are you working on internally within yourself that you're like,
Yeah.
there's something in here, I feel it,
Yeah.
and I know I need to process through this, and I'm
Yeah.
bringing awareness to it.
It's a little bit of surrender. It's building this lifestyle that we currently have, right? I'm in a relationship with a beautiful woman. She's got 4 kids from a prior relationship. I've got 3. We were joking earlier, it's a just add water family.
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought I'd have 7 kids, and we do, and they're all amazing in their own right. And we're both business owners, right? And we've built a lifestyle business where we don't have to show up and go into an office every day. I can literally work from wherever I am, which is great. So the past 2 weeks, we've been here in Utah. Awesome. Give the kids amazing experiences, be present in the home, cook dinner for the kids, take care of them while also getting some work done, right? But I don't have to be on that 9-to-5 grind in order to support the lifestyle that we're after, right? And for the longest time, I would have been like, no, man, we got to work 20 hours today if we're successful, right? You attach that, how many hours did I put in today, to the actual worth. And that's been a real big lesson for me. It started years ago, as a custom car audio installer. I would see the tangible results of the work that I put in that day, right? You bring your car in, right? Got a nice fancy car. Cool. We're going to do some cool stuff to it. And we tear it apart. We're in the fabrication room. We build this really nice subwoofer enclosure in the back. We start wrapping it in leather to match the rest of the vehicle, laser engrave some things. And at the end of the day, we see the progress. It's tangible. We can touch and feel it. Yet when it came to building a business, you're working, system processes, software implementation. And you're like, man, and this is a major challenge for me. Like, I'm not getting any results. Well, you are. They're not tangible. You can't necessarily see them. And you've got to put months, if not weeks, or years of work in on the front end in order to see the result on the back end of the business, right? So it was a real learning curve, and I had difficulty processing that at first. And now I feel the same thing is kind of happening on the personal side of the house, right? It's like, hey, we've got to go rebuild how the family operates, rebuild the communication in the family, rebuild how we're going to train and educate and continue to love on our kids versus the business. And we may not see the results in the kids right away either. It may take 2, 3, 4, 5 years of pouring into them day in and day out with all the love we can in order to get the results we want to when they are of age or adults, or when it's time for them to go out on their own.
What's the, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you really looking at that and saying, like, this is what's really important is the family. What's really important to me is it's not the business, even though, yes, it is important.
Sure,
I mean, it is. What's the one thing inside of yourself that you feel like if you could forgive yourself, and you don't have to get into massive detail, but what's that thing, if you could forgive yourself, it would create the biggest lift inside of yourself?
I think that avoidance has actually hurt me more than anything. Avoiding some tough conversations earlier in my life may have gotten me out of some of the situations that I was in later in life that were more difficult to get out of, right? So truly knowing probably many, many years ago that the marriage I was heading into wasn't the right thing, yet this is supported by society, friends, and family. And there was love for the woman for sure, but I wasn't sure if it was the one. And I continued forth with it still. I don't regret it at this point in time because I was able to learn so many things from it. I have 3 beautiful, amazing children from my relationship with my ex, but it wasn't right from the get-go. And a small smidgen part of me knew it.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, go back to alcohol. Alcohol keeps that suppressed. And throughout our entire relationship, there was alcohol involved.
On both sides?
On both sides. Right? So it keeps that suppressed. It's good enough. We'll just keep moving forward. I don't want to stir the shit pot today.
Yeah. What would you, so knowing that, like, this is one of the biggest things, you let that go, right? You move through that. What would you tell the version of yourself while you were in that marriage? Because a lot of men out there like you that are in the same place, Things look great. Everything's moving forward.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. What would you tell yourself?
I'll tell you what I wouldn't tell myself. I wouldn't tell myself stop drinking, because I would have laughed at that person. What do you know? Right?
Facts.
Yeah. I would have said, hey, you probably, if you're not reading, because I went many, many years of my life without reading, many years. That's a regret of mine for sure. Because I often think, like, how much further along would I be now if I had read more? So if I wasn't reading, get to reading. And if I had met myself at a stage where I was reading, I'd say, hey, you've probably consumed enough business books at this point. You're reading them because it's comfortable, right? You may need a little bit of a switch over here. Go down this path.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So with our community, if there was an ask that you could ask, right? If you could look out into the world of the internet and say, this is what I'm looking for right now in my life, what would be that ask? Not that you want more business,
Sure.
not you need more clients.
Yeah.
Every business owner does, right? But what would be the ask?
That's a great question. Support those around you, even if you don't necessarily agree with their choices. Everyone has their own way of doing things, and you may not understand the true meanings or the reasons behind. And some people may be willing to share it with you, and some people may not. But also, you have to respect the wishes of others, for sure.
Well said.
Yeah.
I could not agree more, because people may not know nobody really knows what's going on inside that battle. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And so being able to sit in that place with people that you love and care about, just to be able to support that, I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing, this is the last question, but what's the one thing you want to be remembered for? When all's said and done, when the dirt hits the casket, you're done. You're no longer here anymore.
Yep.
What is it?
Helping others, and most importantly, the kids, my kids.
Yep. I already knew that.
Yeah.
It was obvious as we had this conversation. I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. So, okay, I have one more then.
All right, good.
What does spiritual capitalism mean to you?
Two important words, right? I think it's two completely separate topics, but they do blend and cross over. Spirituality is a really big thing, and it's different for everybody. I will never tell someone what their spirituality needs to be.
Facts.
I know what it is for me, right? I have a pretty good idea of what it is for you. Cool. But I don't care what it is. Go and explore it for yourself. Go dive in, get deep, get uncomfortable. It's going to help. And the same thing with capitalism, right? Like I find a duty out there to go out, and in order to do the things we do, in order to show up for the ones we truly love, there has to be capitalism in there, because that's how we're going to truly make our money.
Agreed.
Right? I think there's freedom that comes along with it. Yes, there's responsibilities as well. But the two of them are just two beautiful things, and I'm aligned with them.
Well, responsibility and freedom go hand in hand. Like you don't have one without the other.
Yes.
And why would you want to have a ton of freedom without any responsibility? Like it would just be, it wouldn't feel the same.
Yes.
Like to have that responsibility, and then when you have that freedom, it's like they just go hand in hand. If people want to learn more about you, if they want to listen to your podcast, and they listen, I want to get more into the operational side of things. It's great, Dalton. You guys went through a bunch of feeling things, but I really want to know how to run my business as a COO, as an operator. Where do they find you? How can they get involved with you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, real simple. Go to connectwiththomas.com. That little Linktree style page right there has links to everything that I have in my life, business, personal, websites, all my social media accounts are there. That's the one place to go, connectwiththomas.com.
Perfect. And you also do coaching, and you have like seminars. You do all kinds of things, right?
Yep.
So
we do on-site assessments for clients as well. So we'll come in, spend 2 days on site, and basically rip through the entire business top to bottom and see where some holes are, and come up with I call it the roadmap, and build a plan for them to help dial in their business operations to just be more efficient, make more money.
I love that. So if your business right now, if you think you could have a little bit of a lift, if you think that, listen, right now, if we could just figure we could figure this out, that we could have someone come in and take a look, figure out what's working, what's not working. I can tell you for myself, about 5-6 years ago, we did the same thing. It altered our business and changed our business forever. I suggest if you have the opportunity, go get an assessment. It couldn't hurt you. The only thing it could do is help you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out here, and it's been an honor.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.